My name is Ratan Jyoti, and my introduction is that I am a very passionate student of cybersecurity, and that is the only introduction I have. And I would like to thank Dr. Sinu, Reva University, Sandeep, all racers, and all of you uh, uh, to give me a chance to speak to you and interact with you. And as I said, cybersecurity is not my profession, not just my profession, but it is my passion. And uh, like all of you, I believe in learning, and learning is the superpower. Learning is the superpower of superpower. And the more you learn, more you grow. That is the philosophy I believe in. And so the topic of today's conversation I have chosen as building cyber security concept for a successful cyber career. So in next 1 hour, what we will do, we will try to see the current threat landscape, and these landscape are the real landscape. I have not taken from any of these sources, but these are the real threat landscape, which means that banks or the organization like that, they monitor their cyber security through these threat landscape metrics. So I will briefly try to explain what are these factors that must be measured, and through this measurement only we measure the effectiveness of cybersecurity program. And cybersecurity today is changing very fast. And earlier in five years, every quarter I used to see one incident, and now every day I deal with at least 10 to 20 incident. So cybersecurity attack has grown, as Dr. Sinu was telling that CISOs are sleeping enough, and that was not incorrect. So any organization measures their cybersecurity program effectiveness through their threat modeling and the metrics that they deploy in their environment. These metrics can be internal or external, and these are the real threat metrics, I would say. And when I talk about internal, any changes you see in your internal system. What I will try to explain to you that how we measure this, what are the tools and systems we use to measure this effectiveness. What I have not done is I have not put the numbers. So we in reality we also measure the numbers and then the trends. Trends are also hypothetical, whereas the threat type is very real. So first one is the virus. And virus, you know, that is a application code that takes that is spread with the help of other program. And this is typically detected by the system called antivirus, which all of you, I am sure all of you are aware of. Now, to measure the effectiveness, these logs should travel to our security operations center. What Dr. Sinu was telling, she was talking about the automation, SOAR, and SOC in the introduction. So all these logs for a good organization, they should move to security operations center, and through that security operations center, we should measure the effectiveness. What does this mean? That even the virus is an old program. I have been seeing virus for many years, for 15, 20 years, but still they are developing as a lethal weapon. So the trend, if an organization, the virus number of virus is increasing, the organization should vary of their information security and cybersecurity program and put the effective control to control the spread. The second most dangerous, I would say, matrix vector is ransomware. And today ransomware has grown. Uh, every year we say new breed of ransomware coming to the sector like banking, sector like telecom, sector like government sector, and healthcare sector. So these four sectors are most attacked sector. And earlier ransomware used to encrypt the data, and uh, then ransom note was were to be sent, and ransom were demanded. But now the ransomware too have changed. Uh, First, they do the data exfiltration, and then they encrypt the data. So now we have seen that data is also in the hand of the hackers, and also your files are encrypted. So you have no choice but to pay ransom. Many companies tend to pay, although I do not encourage them to pay the ransom. But ransomware has become more lethal in the sense uh, that they are not only encrypting your files, but also encrypting exfiltrating the data. So how these for ransomware cannot be detected by a normal antivirus. For that you need some of the applications like ATP, Advanced Threat Protection, or zero-day protection, or some behavior-based tool to detect the ransomware or zero-day attack. Now again, as I said, that they exfiltrate data. What does it mean? That you not only need to monitor your inbound traffic, but you would also need to monitor your outbound traffic. And again, your security operations center, your the automation tool plays a big role. So direction of ideal direction for all these threats would be for any good organizations would be downwards, but then you need to detect, prevent, detect, and monitor these attacks in a greater way. Third thing is lateral movement. Can anybody guess what lateral movement is? Lateral movement is nothing but if any malware today the perimeter has diminished, means your IPS, your next generation firewall, they protect your perimeter, but they are not attacked in a serious matter. The attackers have shifted their focus to the people. Means if they are able to compromise one system, they can compromise the entire organization. What does that mean? That once your laptop or a user is compromised by attack like social engineering or by any other means, the attacker is already inside your network. And when the attacker is already inside their network, attacker will not try to attack your crown jewels. And your crown jewel in any organization would be things like Active Directory. Once they control their Active Directory, they can control the entire your entire organization, because Active Directory is the prime authentication tool your organization has. But from the stage of compromising a laptop to the Active Directory, the steps are not one. They move in 8 to 10 steps. For that, they need to laterally move in your network and compromise one destination after other. And if your security program will not be able to erase this lateral movement, then probably you will be breached. So your effective security program must have a device and a process to monitor these lateral movement. An ideal scenario for any organization, a good organization, is that these lateral movements should be 0 in numbers. What does this mean? That your hosts are not compromised and attackers is not moving inside your network one by one. So if a healthy organization, a healthy cyber organization will have 0 lateral movement or no lateral movement. And then some of you may ask the question how these lateral movements are detected. So these are detected by various tools, but most effective tool to detect the lateral movement is your deception system. You put your decoy at the strategic location, and these decoy will tell that if there is a lateral movement attempted. And how these devices typically detect, a simple use case I will tell, uh, that if there are two systems and there is no trust between those two systems, why a system will try to connect to the other system? If I have no work with it, I have system A and B, and there is no relationship between A and B. A should never interact with the system B, even internally. And if I am able to study that particular trust, I'll be able to trace the lateral movement. So lateral movement, and of late I have seen the all banking and major hack has happened because the organizations have failed to detect the lateral movement. So if they deploy their deception technology, their decoy at the right place, and they capture and they send their logs to their security operations center or their SIM, then this type of event can be monitored, and effective incident response can be in a place to curtail the effect, even if your endpoint is compromised. The the third major the threat vector that I have seen in last couple of years, that your internal host communicating with anonymizers. So ideally, your all internal hosts should connect through your proxy system, because your proxy is a tool that filters your internet traffic. And not only you should, again here, proxy should not only filter the inbound traffic, proxy should also filter the outbound traffic. What does that mean? That if your system, not only the internal communication that is coming to your network is can be problematic, but also if your internal host is communicating to some system outside, you should monitor bit by bit of uh, each of the traffic. And if any traffic is going with bypassing your proxy, you should monitor that, because that would be another indicator of compromise, and uh, that should be arrested well within the time to prevent any breach. The other trend is recon activity. Is the simple, as I said, in the case of lateral movement. If I have no relationship with a particular server, between two servers, why the servers would connect to other server? And if I put my cybersecurity program to monitor this activity practically and send the logs in the real time to my security operations center, these recon activity must be arrested, can be arrested. And recon, again, as I said, can happen only because of two reasons: either your server is misconfigured or they lack some patch. So if you have an effective patch management solution, these recon activity can very well be arrested. Then internal host communicating to botnet command and control. Again, that is another way, like anonymizer. You should monitor all your outbound traffic to detect if anything is compromised or not. And what the new trends we are seeing in the cyberspace is that you monitor above a particular threshold. So we have seen that many slow attacks happening. So not only you should monitor the above the threshold, but also below the threshold things should be monitored. And for that, the things like artificial intelligence and machine learning based cybersecurity solutions are very useful, and they give you a practical visibility that if any of your internal host is trying to communicate to botnet center or a command and control center. This is a typical way that attacker controls your internal system, and slowly they will move laterally, and they will try to control your entire network. Again, the next one is internal host communicating to high risky IP. This is again a similar to botnet and command and control, but this can be prevented using the threat intelligence. If your threat intelligence program is effective and you are choosing the right kind of threat intelligence, this type of attack can be prevented. And you put in your security operations center, in your SIM, like QRadar, you put these IPs as a reference and try to scan all the traffic that is going out. Immediately you will come to know that this particular host is trying to communicate to the high risky IP or a botnet or a command and control center, and you can take the corrective action. So your incident and response become very important. Your threat intelligence program become very important. The next is internal connection to the host categorized as malware. Again, highly deadly. And instead of the high risky IP, here the malware command center needs to be monitored. And again, this is a very lethal attack, but success lies in the effective threat intelligence program, and also a good threat hunting system should be in the place. What is threat hunting? So as I explained to you, that all your communication, inward communication or outward communication, should pass through your proxy. But if even through they are passing through the proxy, they are doing the slow attack, fast attack, that can be monitored through the threat hunting. They can help you monitoring your traffic against the going to botnet, command and control, high risky IP, malware IP, and so forth and so on. So effectively threat hunting and threat intelligence system will help you in dealing with that. And for the industry, like again the banking, healthcare, telecommunication, and government sector, these programs are very important. I am not telling for the other sector. Other sector also, these are very and highly important. And then you do monitor your system with a different time zone and different OS version, because we have seen in the banking and few other industry that when the attacker compromises a system, they change the time zone and they try to attack. So these are not purely cyber incidents, but yes, if you monitor them effectively, possibly you will avoid the possible cyber incident, and uh, your organization can be saved from getting compromised. So while I talked about the internal threat vector and threat matrix that every organization should put today, and also I try to explain why they are becoming more challenge for any organization, because as a CISO or as a security practitioner, all of us will have to fix hundreds of the problems. But attacker needs just one hole to enter and then compromise everything. Now, from external matrix point of view, what we should monitor? What we should monitor is again IP, as I said, from which IP your traffic is coming in, what is the reputation of IP, and again the security operations center or source platform will help you in implementation of this. We must monitor the URLs reputation, URLs history, and then with the help of security operations center, with the help of IDS, IPS, with the help of web application firewall, with the help of next generation firewall, we should monitor the effectiveness of our cybersecurity program and monitor what kind of URLs are coming in, what kind of traffic from the URLs are coming in. As I said that today the perimeter has diminished. We have seen that no longer the firewall or IPS is protecting your perimeter. Of course, they are protecting your traditional perimeter, but the new perimeter is the human. If any of us will be compromised, our entire ecosystem or entire organization can be compromised. And what we have seen during the COVID, that email-based attack has grown 3 to 4 times. For a banking organization and for the healthcare organization, even it was even more. So you should put a very effective cybersecurity program for your email. And the two important things that you should put on the email is the ATP, again, the advanced threat protection, the advanced link protection, and the anti-spam system. If your three programs are effective, the chances of getting phishing mail and getting your employee attacked becomes very less. Similarly, you should monitor the reputation of the domains, and phishing email I have just explained to you, malware email I have just explained to you. What is not written here is very important, that link inside the mail also must be monitored, and you should have some kind of sandboxing to simulate the potential malicious behavior of those links, those malware, those attachments of the mail. And you should also monitor the trend. What is the trend in your organization? Riskware callback, malware beckoning, and these are again the external attack where your internal systems will be called back, and an effective APT program like a gateway layer APT or a zero day program will help you dealing with such case. Hash is the other major thing. For all malwares, what is practically done, that we calculate hash of the malware and then we put at our antivirus system, our anti-malware system, and also at our security operations center. And whenever any traffic is matching that particular hash is coming in, we are getting alert, and we take our incident response program takes the next of the things. And spam mail, I explained to you that again, spam mail is the most lethal weapon nowadays by which an organization can be compromised. So if you have put the effective cybersecurity system around your people, you are educating your people, you are putting the effective controls on your endpoint, and your email is secure, this reduces the chance of compromise to your organization by at least 80%. So these two metrics that I just explained to you, these are the real trends. These are the real trends that industry is seeing now. And during your entire course, I am sure you will get hands-on on the next generation firewall, web application firewall, IDS, IPS, security operations center, SOAR, your SIM. So you should try to answer each of these questions. How SIM will help in each of these metrics to deal with. How proxy will work. How my deception will help me in containing these threats. How my anti-malware program will help me in achieving the best. And ideal trend is that ideal scenario is that all these trends should be downwards, number one. And if you are counting number, it should be 0. Achieving 0 is very difficult. By some or other way you will get attacked, but this trend will show you that where your cybersecurity program needs to be tuned in, and where you need to put more attention, where you put to less attention, and so forth and so on. But you cannot leave these metrics, and your cybersecurity program should be based on these two metrics that I just explained to you, the internal metrics and external metrics. And the organization who will take care of all these, probably the chances of compromise will be very less. Now, having introduced you to the current landscape, now I would like to move to what is my view on what will be in the demand. So COVID had changed the scenario, although as I said, every year the threat landscape changes in the cybersecurity. So the last year, what program I had, I need to fine tune my program for this year, because I see a newer type of threat every year. But in the cyber space, I try to glance through the internet, and then I most of the experts feel that, and even I agree with them, that the what will be in the demand. And so whenever you have chosen a very good university, and I was impressed by the introduction Dr. Sinu had made about the racers and the mentors, and I am sure all of you will be the outcome would be very great for all of you. But at the same time, we need to know what will be in the demand, which means that which area you have to focus more. And this course is very practical oriented, and you cannot learn the practical if your concepts are not good. So a good mentor will not only give you a good exposure to the practical the system, like next generation firewall, the web application firewall, IDS, IPS, your deception system, and network access control, maybe network behavior analysis, and there are so many other tools. We work on almost 40 to 50 cybersecurity tools in our organization. But it is important to for us, if my concepts are clear, these practical sessions would be very easy for me. And for that, you need to ask the question why, what, when, where, and things like that. And so next half an hour or next 40 minutes, I will try to tell you how you should read, how you should focus to become a better cybersecurity professional. And for that, we all need to know that what will be in the demand. So in the demand would be risk identification and management. So there are various risk management framework like ISO, NIST, and many organizations they have their own risk management framework. You need to know how these risks are calculated. I saw some of the participant profile, they were into already into GRC, so for them it would be easier to understand. Technical fundamentals, very important. Unless these fundamentals are clear to you, the practical things would not be clear. So give a lot of attention in next 2 years to technical fundamentals. Data management and analysis, I saw in the introduction, a lot of experts are there to help you in the data management and analysis. So explore the feasibility and get best out of them, and that will make you a better cybersecurity professional. DevSecOps, now this is the era of agility, and now the development is very rapid. So if security will not match the development, probably the security of the system will lag behind. So earlier we had SDLC, we had V-shaped model, we had waterfall model, but those models are still valid, but most of the system, due to invention in the cloud, they have gone to DevOps. And there are many DevOps professionals, they are being trained, but I see very few DevSecOps professionals. So you need to, right now, what was happening till now, that the system is being developed, and then after that it is tested, and then it is moving to production. So time to production was huge. But with the invent of DevSecOps for last few years, the security is also taking the pace, and security testing is done as soon as you develop the system. So you do the static testing, you do the dynamic testing, you do the application security testing, you do the source code testing, side by side, and so your time to deployment to the production is reduced by 80% to 90% due to DevSecOps. So this again, the professional knowing DevSecOps will be very high in demand. So all of you should look into this. Next is cloud, and there is no alternate to cloud. And as I said, that COVID has promoted the technology which is full of self-service and automation, and there is nothing like cloud. And I will briefly touch about cloud, what you should learn in the cloud, especially in the cloud security area. That is the first case I will discuss. And the second case, if time permits, we'll go to identity and access management, and just with the intention to how to build the concepts. So cloud is everywhere. Cloud is the present, and cloud is the future. So the cloud security is also, if you develop your career, if you learn cloud security, and you'll be very good professional, and you will be high in demand. Similarly, we talk about automation. Dr. Sinu was talking that this course will give you hands-on on SOAR. So security incident and management will become automated. So you should learn the SOAR, because that is upcoming technology. And although demand for human will never go, but automation is the future. And why it is the future? Because, for example, your IP keeps on attacking you. And if you are taking half an hour to 1 hour to block that IP by your manual process, then in 1 hour, the hacker will do the damage. So you are required to block those IP immediately. And for that, the technology like SOAR would be highly useful. I just talked about the threat hunting. Again, this is a very emerging technology, and threat hunting is maturing as such. So now I have seen that banks and other industry are deploying machine learning based threat hunting. And the case of malware beckoning that I explained to you, that can be done on the basis of entropy. The way I manage my keyboard, the way with the speed that I transfer or exfiltrate data, machine learning models can help you. So I have seen many organizations who have contacted me when they face some incident. I have seen that they have 30 to 40 cybersecurity systems, but their systems were not able to identify a particular attack. But when they put the effective threat hunting program, they were able to detect what the other devices were not. So I mean to say that where other devices fail, this threat hunting will complement in detecting the threat. So not only the IP reputation based threat hunting is there, but I see a lot of emergence on machine learning based threat hunting. And I have made various models on the threat hunting and deployed in my organization, and that has been very, very effective. And I need not say that interpersonal skills, business acumen, and agility would be the key. So I want you, I wish you to learn all the ways to learn all these things in this particular course. You have a great faculty, great team, and a great university to help you, and uh, many mentors are there who will help you further. Now, having said that, these skills will be high in demand. What is the future? That, and I told you that cloud security is the number one thing that all of you should learn. The second thing that is most emerging is the API security. Now, what is API? I will briefly explain to you. API is application programming interface. So earlier we used to call it application security. A monolithic application used to be there, but in monolithic application can be operationally difficult to manage, and also security wise it would be difficult to manage. So I have divided a application into 100 APIs, for example, and each API is capable of retrieving data from our different system and give the output to others, or do a particular operation. For example, in the banking parlance, if I say customer search, KYC, customer deletion, customer update, for each of the purpose, a different API can be made. And most of the API due to cloud services and also on-prem system, they are microservices based. So if you know the security of the API and microservices, again, you will be a very good professional, and that is going to be future. Now, recently you all would have read that the government of India has barred player like Google to store customer or payment system data. So banks will emerge, banks and banking system and the financial system will go towards the API banking, and the real-time authentication. For example, Aadhaar authentication would be there. That would be a real-time authentication with the help of application programming interface. And if I talk about the API security, again, API is security. What you should learn is the entire life cycle of API security. And right from the designing of the API security, how they are made, how they are managed, and how they are retired also. And again, in the API security, we must learn the entire the role-based access control, the attribute-based access control, how we do, what methods are used to write those API. What is the authentication? It is a bearer authentication, basic authentication. It is a it is a token-based authentication, or it is a modern authentication for the federated user like OAuth 2.0 or above. We should also see logging and how they are filtering the request and response, and the filtering. A lot of toggling and filtering is done for the API, like rate limit, things like geolocation filtering, things like the development life cycle, how they are made. So this is again a whole entire cybersecurity system can be built around the API security. So if you know the cloud security and API security, your future is very, very bright. And I do not see I see you as an expert cybersecurity professional if you know these two technology. Now, cloud, as I said, that post-COVID, the only survival mantra is that automation and self-service. And for automation and self-service. We talked about the DevOps. The most prominent technology that is used are Docker, Kubernetes, or Jenkins. So they will help you in the CI/CD pipeline. But again, Docker or any automation tool, by virtue of their nature, they himself is a complete system. So if you know their cyber security of the Docker and Kubernetes, it would be great to your career. I talked about DevSecOps. Again, that is the fourth thing I feel that we all should know for our better future and to build a better cyber ecosystem. Not only why I am so interested in you is this ecosystem needs you. We as a cybersecurity professional, market is shortage of professionals, and again Reva University is doing a great job by producing such a fine-tuned professional by this customized course. So my kudos to Reva University and entire team. So these are the future, and uh, you must learn in your course all these things. Malware analysis continue to be for last 10 years. I said how malware from virus to modern day ransomware and Trojans, how they have evolved. So they now in a ransomware, you will find that ransomware, there is a virus, there is a Trojan, there is a dropper, there is a ransomware, and there is a combination of that. And on top of that, they will have the machine learning and artificial intelligence capability too. So they have become deadly. So if you know the malware analysis, I am not sure whether this is the part of this particular course or not, but again, this is going to be a very high in demand area of the future. I explained to you what threat hunting is there and how machine learning and artificial intelligence, the supervised learning and non-supervised learning is helping us in designing the threat hunting models. Uh, so I will skip this from the here. Again, threat hunting is complement to all your security system. When all your security system will fail, possibly this threat hunting will guide you for a particular possible incident and help you prevention of an possible malicious act. Threat modeling is another area that is very important. And in threat modeling, when I say this is again related to application or API security, where you model all the threats and you see the control. What kind of control we have built around that particular threat. So this is more of a risk management, but again, this is a very good area, very enriched area that all of you should know. Needless to say, Security Operations Center SOC, you will get a very good exposure at the Reva University. I can see that they have a state-of-art SOC facility with the SOAR. I believe they have QRadar, and so Security Operations Center is a highly sophisticated area, but a must for survival today. And my personal suggestion to all of you is to read. And Security Operations Center is just not about the SIM. It is all the 30-40 devices that I just mentioned. It is a combination of that. And not only the device, it is about devices, it is about the complete set of people, process, and technology. It is all about your incident and response plan. It is all about your cyber crisis management plan. So right from the policy, procedure, guideline, standard, framework, to actual technology, entire encompasses and makes the Security Operations Center. So this area is very good, and all of you should learn this particular area, and this area would be very fruitful to all of you. There are very scarcity of professionals around Security Operations Center. I find it really difficult to get resources on this particular area. Now, my personal suggestion to all of you, all of you, whether you are an analyst or you are a senior director or you are a CISO, that you must read Windows Internal. Because I see all virus, malware, ransomware, all type of lateral movement generally happens through the Windows system. So you must know the fundamentals of Windows Internal, how they work, and also if possible you can add it to Windows Sys internal and read, and that would be a great addition to all the skill set that you have. And finally, and the most important, is the concept. In all the area that I have just mentioned in the last two slides, if your concepts are good, you'll be easily able to grasp whatever will be taught in the class. Learning practical is easy if your concepts are fine-tuned, your concepts are good, your foundations are good, your basics are good. And that is the message I wanted to give you in our first interaction today. So concept remains the key, and concepts make you the the better learning. And as I said, that learning is the superpower. And I also said that not only superpower, learning is the superpower of superpower. So you try to build the concept. You ask all the mentor, all the tutors, why, what, when, where. If you ask these type of question, your concept would be very, very clear. And today for that, so what I will try to do, so this is not the concept building class, and what I will try to do, I will take two case study, and one will be around cloud security, and I have taken a typical case of incident response in the cloud, a very, very short use case. And then the second is identity and access management. If time permits, we'll touch identity and access management, or else we will end with the cloud security. These slides will be with you. You can read, and maybe when some other time I will interact with you, I will talk about the identity and access management. And why I have taken these two areas, because I see these skills are highly in very, very high demand. So I thought that these will be apt case for this conversation, for this interaction. So why cloud security is in most demand? That is the number one case study we are going to take, and what we all must know about the cloud security. So the question is asked. So it is a myth. It is a myth that cloud is secure, and it is also a myth that cloud is not secure. And I will answer why with the example of AWS. But most of us, they have a lot of tools. Cloud has a lot of inbuilt tools and a lot of marketplace tool to support the security. And many experts feel, I also feel, that cloud can be more secure than physical servers. And this is due to, as this slide says, that advanced protocols, proactive monitoring, and security layers. And while it is safer, it is not foolproof. So what we need to do to make it foolproof, I will try to explain in next 5 to 10 minutes. And as I said, that it is a myth that cloud is secure, and it is also a myth that cloud is not secure. So all cloud service works on the principle of shared responsibility model. What is shared responsibility model? That there are two types of security in and around the cloud. One is called security of the cloud, and other thing is called security in the cloud. So any cloud service provider takes responsibility only of security of the cloud, and which is limited to, please make a note, which is limited to compute, storage. Compute means again your server where you do the computation. Storage is your storage instances, basic operations of database, and networking. Plus the cloud service like AWS, they are built into the zones and regions and edge location. Today I will not go into what is zone, what is regions, and what is edge location. Maybe on some other day we will try to learn each concept one by one. But idea is to just to say that AWS or any cloud service provider will take responsibility of only these many elements. But my security is beyond this. I as a bank or as a other organization, I am more worried about my customer data. I am more worried about the platform, application security, identity and access management that I just mentioned. my network security, my firewall security, my infrastructure security, the client-side data, the server-side data, the database encryption, network traffic protection. I talked about the IDS, IPS firewall, web application firewall, network access control, and things like that. All those are responsibility of the customer. So if I go to the cloud, I buy an instance and I start operations. Security is not built. I need to make my instance secure, and for that I am responsible. So as a bank, for all customer data security, for all application security, for all database security, for security operation center, for encryption, I am responsible. Customer is responsible. What does this mean? Any cloud service provider gives you a lot of tools that you need to that you can use, and some tools are free and some tools are pay as you go on. These tools you need to configure, you need to monitor these tools. Again, there would be something like SOC, but you need to monitor your SOC like your on-prem system. So when you understand this shared responsibility model, probably you are better equipped to secure your own content in the cloud. You will see that for the large part of the security, it is the customer's responsibility. But as I said, then cloud gives you a lot of tools and techniques to cloud gives you a lot of tools and techniques to manage this. So typically, I will take a case of incident response in the cloud. But typically, I divide cloud security, like AWS security, into 5 major areas. Like first is incident response, and which again starts with how you have configured your logs, how your logs goes to your security operation center or the tools that AWS provides. How do you monitor, and what kind of penetration testing, what kind of VA you have to avoid these incidents. So the number one area is the next case study that I will try to explain you very briefly. The other area, which is very important for industry like banking and all other industry as well, logging and monitoring. So again, there are a lot of tools in the cloud. You can log and monitor all the incidents in the cloud, right from the infrastructure to database to application and so forth and so on. And even the machine learning capability is there in the cloud, where you can put your logs and you can get the result. But logging and monitoring becomes very important, and this will provide you the capability of a security operations center. The core of any cloud security is the identity and access management. What does this mean? And when you have an on-prem system, you monitor a third party, you implement a third party identity and access management solution. But in cloud, it is inbuilt. You need to utilize that. So there are multi-layer of authentication is there. There are some keys like secret key and access key and duration of the key. There are way to manage your federated users and your delegated users. Delegated users are those who are your internal users to the cloud, and federated users are those users who are coming from your office network or from things like your Facebook, LinkedIn, or other social media through which they can be authenticated. So this is a great tool for inbuilt tool in the cloud, but you need to implement this, and all your authentication should happen through identity and access management. Infrastructure security is very important. Whatever we have discussed so far, right from, and they give you the facility of a stateful firewall and a stateless firewall. Again, today I will not explain you what is a stateful firewall and what is a stateless firewall, but these two firewall, the option to configure your instances in the cloud more securely. So one will work at a particular instance, and one will work at a particular at a subnet layer. That is called security gateway and NACL in the AWS parlance. So they are not limited to firewall, your web application firewall, your IDS, IPS, your web DDoS protection, and also infrastructure security means how do you log into the cloud? Is it a Bastion host? It is a VPN server? It is a direct connect, and there are many other options in the cloud to log into securely to your cloud instance from your office or even from your home securely. Data protection for a bank organization like for the industry like banking, data protection becomes very important. And again, as I said, they use the RDS and non-RDS database in the cloud. But how these database are protected? How there are multiple options. There are multiple options, right from the protection of data at rest, protection of data in the transit, your database level security, blocking of the connection to the database from other than the application, hardening of the database. There are a lot of options available in the cloud today. Last is very important is the BCP and DRP, which becomes very important for industry like ours. And there are great tools. I talked to you about regions and zones and edge location that play a vital role in BCP and DRP. Having said that, I divided the cloud security into these 6 areas, but there are a lot of options for automated threat detection, automated incident response, and other protection that we talk about. So everything that we talked about, the SOAR, web application firewall, your next generation firewall, your DDoS protection, everything can be inbuilt. And also there are some features that you can use the marketplace third-party tools into your cloud for a better visibility. Ideal way, you should do risk assessment, then choose the right tools and techniques, and then you should implement your cloud. So for today, since time is less, I will talk only about the incident response in the cloud, and I will not talk about IAM. Now, so this is a real case study. One person from my team received a email from some of their ex-colleague in other organization that their servers were hacked, and when we inquired, we found that how they knew. When we asked, they said that they have received the abuse notice. And again, this is a very big tool for a sample abuse notice I have attached in the presentation, and this is a big tool in the cloud. So whenever you try to attack by mistake or even unintentionally, you will get abuse notice by AWS, and you need to file your response and clarification with the log. Similarly, when other third party will attack, again you will be apprised by the AWS that your particular system is attacked. So that is the additional incident response feature in the cloud by the way of abuse notice. Now let us try to understand what could be the primary reason when they say that your system is attacked. In cybersecurity, there are two things: the big things and a small thing. Big thing is all about our perimeter security. I am putting the next generation firewall. I am putting the web application firewall. I am putting the IPS. I am putting the next generation IDS, and I have put a host of devices. So they are the big things. I have put the security operations center and all. Small things are things like your misconfiguration, things like your lack of patching, things like open ports, and believe me, 90% of the breach happens because of the small things, not because of the big things. And same is true for the cloud also. So I have tried to analyze that why the company get abuse notice and why they are hacked. So when we knew that one of the EC2 instance in the AWS is hacked, these are the following ways by which a EC2 instance or a server in the cloud can be compromised. As I said, these are the smaller thing, not the bigger thing, due to which the breach can happen. Improper firewall configuration, lack of web application firewall, server hardening is a must, and there is no replacement of hardening. If you have an open port, if your server is not hardened, you have a weak cybersecurity program in your organization. So here also basics come first. We should the organization which survives, uh, that is mainly due to they follow the basics principle, right? And basics starts with the things like the patch management, the configuration management, the proper change management. And if these things are in place, likelihood of attack would be reduced by manifold. Then file integrity monitoring may not be there. Patch management is not there. Before deploying a code, we do not scan with the. I talked about the DevSecOps or application security or SDLC. So code scanning is a must. So most of the cloud instances, they get code from GitHub, and if the and you see every month I see one instances where the GitHub was breached. But should we stop using GitHub? Answer is no. Answer is no. But we should put our cyber security program that whenever the code is deployed in our infrastructure, our cloud infrastructure, or our on-prem infrastructure, they must be scanned, and all the vulnerabilities must be mitigated before putting into the live system. Monitor for certain open ports and logs, and this can be achieved uh, uh, through the security operations center or things like that, and many more. So in a nutshell, I would like I want to convey that if we do not follow basics here also, we are likely to be breached. So basic becomes very important. Fundamentals here also become very important, and it is not that big thing always will prevent attack. It is a small thing which is very important in the cyber security. Now, I will not take more than 5 minutes from here. Now, how AWS guard duty works? So AWS guard duty is something like I told you that AWS has got uh, MESI, that is a machine learning tool where you put all the logs, and then through the machine learning they will give you the output that what threats is there in your environment. But other than MESI is costly. But other than MESI, they have a feature called guard duty, which is similar to your threat detection system or your security operations center or your SIM rather. And you should configure all your CloudTrail logs. And what is CloudTrail logs? All your infrastructure logs are in the cloud are called CloudTrail logs. Similar to your on-prem system where you send your syslogs and other logs from different servers and different infrastructure components in the cloud, they are CloudTrail and CloudWatch. So you send your CloudTrail logs to your AWS Guard Duty. The second advantage with the cloud is that you can form the virtual private connection, and these BPC logs. BPC is nothing but a subnetting of your network, and based on the trust only the access can be implemented. And these BPC logs also can migrate, can be shifted, connected to your AWS Guard Duty. And many I have analyzed around I have done the architecture review of more than 60 to 70 the cloud framework, and I have seen that most of them, they do not configure the DNS logs, and they lose the visibility. So far I have not mentioned that DNS security also becomes a very important DNSSEC. So you need to protect your system from DNS based attack. DNS is domain name service, and it is just like how your traffic is routed. So if I have to go from my home to Reva University, I will go direct. I will not go first to Mysore and then to Reva University. So similarly, the DNS tells you that what is the right path your traffic should travel, and if the path is not right, you have all reasons to doubt something bad has happened in your network. So if you are putting all the vital logs into your CloudTrail, your AWS Guard Duty, will tell you that they have detected the Bitcoin in your network. There is a chances of DNS exfiltration, Trojan is found, SSH brute force. So you should understand the importance of these logs in the cybersecurity. Logs are very important for the cybersecurity. Not only the logs are important, but how they are configured, what level of logging is there, how much logs are going to your security operation center, and how well do you do correlation. I am sure while you reading the QRadar or other IBM tool, you will understand the importance of correlation. And how do you write these correlation rule use cases? That becomes very, very important. Similarly, in the AWS also, you have inbuilt capability. It is not that you have to use this. You can use your own SIM also from the marketplace, and you can configure these logs. So you need to do the risk assessment and find out which solution suits you most, which is most cost effective and best result given. The other problem I see in the incident response is that AWS works on the AWS organization principle, which means that you have multiple member accounts. So I have seen that they operate, many of the players, they operate their AWS account in silos. What does that mean? That they do not integrate the account to their master AWS account, so they do not form the AWS organization. Once you form your AWS account, it becomes the your child account for your AWS organization, then probably a holistic view of entire your network through your CloudTrail logs, your BPC logs, your that is your networking logs, and DNS means your routing logs, uh, can give you a better picture to detect any cyber weakness in your ecosystem. Two most important thing that I have seen in the cloud, two most common incident, they are the exposed AWS access and secret key and compromised EC2 instances. So compromised EC2 instance, I just explained to you, you got a abuse notice and then you realize that some of your, one of the server is hacked, then you will isolate that server. You will not stop that server. You will isolate that server. You will take the log. You will do your forensics, and then you will realize that what level of loss we have made. Will restrict their access. And the second most attack, second most incident that I see in the cloud is the exposed AWS access and secret key. And I was telling you that IAM, identity and access management, is the key to the security of the cloud. One of the advantage that we have with the cloud is the identity and access management. And identity access and access management is incomplete without access and secret keys. So these becomes vital part, and if you manage these incidents along with these huge cases that I have just referred to, chances of breach becomes very minimal. So again, here the concept of fundamental and basics are there. And what is the best, and the last slide, what is the best practice for the IR in the cloud is that you ensure that you have the best incident response plan. A written plan, well coordinated plan, well communicated plan is a must for any successful incident response, be it a cloud or be it a on-prem system. Make sure that someone is notified to take action on the critical finding. These findings that I said are critical findings. If you see any of these, make sure that your incident response plan is initiated quickly and you take immediate action. So typically the person is also the people define the criticality P1, P2, P3 after the risk assessment, and then they take action basis the timeline. They set the timeline to respond to each incident. And most important, practice responding to the event. Do tabletop exercise, do real simulation, and learn from your mistake where you have missed. So simulation becomes very important, very handy, and you must repeat. And more importantly, you should learn lessons from the incident that you have faced. So since I have consumed my time, I will stop here. I will skip the identity and access management. Maybe in the next time when we will talk about that. If you have any question, you may ask.
Ravi has a question here, Ratan, that your opinion towards security in a serverless workspace. Serverless.
So again, in the serverless environment also, the six thing that I have said, our cyber security program must include the proper incident response, logging and monitoring, infrastructure security, and identity and access management. So that becomes equally important in the cloud atmosphere, even in the serverless environment. And again, in the serverless environment, you should rely more on the automated threat detection. There are different tools in the AWS. There are marketplace tools, but more than the tools, your cybersecurity program in detection and monitoring helps.